Hello and welcome to a DFS preview for the 2023 Players Championship. My name is Eric, and here at SweetSpotDFS, it's all about trying to hit the optimal lineup every single week. In these preview videos, I do that by going over the stats I think you need to target in order to do just that, which means taking a look at the bucket system, which basically goes over the stats you want to be looking at. If you want to know more about it, I do have a video or a video link in the description below. Go check it out. It's a short video. That is if you are unfamiliar with the bucket system. Otherwise, other things I'll be covering in this preview video, going over the tournament and golf course, going over past optimal lineups and GPP winning lineups. My buddy Chad Eckert posted this on Twitter, and there was some kind of criticism to it. The reason we look at these is try to determine any kind of trend that fits at this golf course to see if maybe 2 or 3 6K golfers are quite common in optimal lineups, or maybe not using a 10K golfer. That's what looking at past optimal lineups helps us do, because quite frankly, this tournament is always the same type of tournament. Most tournaments are. You're gonna have the same type of fields in them, and DraftKings is gonna price the golfers nearly the same. Sure, things can happen quite differently, but it's still worth analyzing and trying to figure out what are the best plays or what are the best salaries to put together. That's the reason why. So we'll go over that. I had to add that in this little intro. I'm going to be reviewing the Arnold Palmer Invitational to show you how well the sweet spot process did, going over the marquee tee times, going over the buckets, and then following that up with going into the buckets for this tournament. All of that is to give you a little bit more confidence or to understand the sweet spot process while I talk about it in this preview. But before we get into any of those things, some giveaway reminders followed by a giveaway. First thing, we're going to change this all up. I want you guys to understand throughout this whole video, you can follow along with me because I have a cheat sheet available. So go check the description of this video, click on that cheat sheet link. It'll bring you to this website, this Google Sheet. All I ask you to do when you get here, go to File, the File menu, scroll down to Make a Copy. Make a copy of it. That way you can put your own filters on here, or not your own filters. You can use the filters I will be using in this video, or you can create your own. The spreadsheet will be yours, so you get to modify it however you like. Now, you don't have to, but it is available to you to do that. But again, if you want to follow along with me throughout this video, make a copy and then use the filters that I also provide. You can also find the bucket system here for the Players Championship. Everything has been updated for this tournament. I obviously need to add in tee times, the wave, the group rank, all that good stuff. I'll do that before the strategy video. I know tee times are out. I just haven't been able to go into this and update it, but I will have it updated eventually. Just keep an eye out for it. You know, revisit the site, revisit the cheat sheet, and just see if it's been updated or not. Like I said, I'll have it updated before the strategy video tomorrow because I need it. But be on the lookout for that. I will also have an optimizer. I don't have that readily available. Again, I usually wait till tee times come out, and of course they are, but it's Monday. I'm a little bit behind, so I don't have the optimizer ready. If you're interested in that, contact me right there, sweetspotdfs@gmail.com. Let me know you're interested in it, and I will send it to you once it is ready. You also have to be subscribed to the channel and comment down below. If you need a topic, just give me your 2 favorite golfers you're going to be playing in your lineups this week. Now, getting on to the juicier giveaways. One being a prize picks giveaway. It's more like a rebate. There is a link in the description to get you to the sign up page and put in the promo code SweetSpot. Once you do that and put $20 in your account, I'm going to give you $20 back. Now, Prize Picks is going to match your deposit up to $100. So if you want to put up to $100, be my guest. They're going to match it. You'll get an additional $100. Plus, you're going to get $20 from me on the top anyways. So really, you'll get $200 in your account. It'll only be worth $80. Or if you want to play it for free, put $20 in your account. I'll give you your $20 back. And boom, you have $40 in your account, all for signing up using the promo code SweetSpot. So highly encourage you to do that. And then, of course, I have a weekly and a monthly giveaway. We're going to be doing the monthly giveaway tonight during this, right after this reminder. But we'll also be doing a weekly giveaway. Now, the weekly giveaway is worth $5. The monthly giveaway is worth $50 if we reach the sub goal for the month, and you can see it all the way there to the left. We only got to $4.97. It was up to $4.98, and then we unfortunately lost one. So instead of $50, I'm giving away a t-shirt with the logo you see me wearing. Of course, this is my sweatshirt, but you'll have a t-shirt with this logo on it. So we'll be running that monthly giveaway to everyone who has participated this last month on any of the videos that I put out. You get a free entry per video just by commenting in the comment section of each video. But I guess without further ado, let's go ahead and do the weekly giveaway as well as the monthly giveaway. So for the weekly giveaway, this is worth $5. I will send $5 to you. We had a total of 57 entries. So I thank all of you for participating. I did include the Honda Classic live video during last week's weekly giveaway. I forgot to do that, so I made a note for myself to add that in here. So that's what I did. I also forgot to add in just the regular comments in the API. Actually, it wasn't the API. I think it was another. I have to remember where it was, but it was another live video or strategy video. There we go. Yeah. So I also forgot to do the actual comments. You know, after the video went live, after it had posted, the comments that came out afterwards, I forgot to add that as well. Well, I'm sorry, I highlighted the wrong ones, but there we go. So I added those as well. So all of that being together, we had 57 total entries. So again, thank you all for participating. And without further ado, I'm going to click this little arrow down and put Y, and we're going to find our weekly giveaway winner. You'll win $5, and I'll send it to you either through PayPal, Venmo, Google Pay, however you'd like it. It is yours. Winner is Jim Lemoyne. Congratulations, Jim. I don't know how many times this makes you a winner, maybe 3. I can't remember, but put in 2 entries. So you're kind of lucky because there's been a lot of, there's a lot of people with a ton of entries, but either way, I appreciate Jim's continued support. He supported me from a very, very, very long time ago. So he wins it with his Honda Classic DFS strategy video comment. Jim, I'm pretty sure I have all the information I need. If not, I'll reach out to you either on Twitter or email, but I will send you $5. Now, getting into the monthly giveaway, this person is going to win a t-shirt with the Sweet Spot logo on it. By the way, this last month we had 122 unique comments, I should say. I don't even know if I should call it that. Remember, you only get 1 free entry per video, so a lot of the people that are on this list have participated way more than what it shows, but I limited 1 entry per video, and with that being said, we have 122. So that's pretty good. I can't remember what we had last month, but hey, I appreciate it nonetheless. So the t-shirt winner is Jim Lemoyne. Rigged. I can see it already in the comments. This is rigged. You won with your API DFS strategy video. So not only is Jim the $5 winner, but he is also the t-shirt winner. That's sketchy. See, it's a random thing, guys. This is not rigged whatsoever. Oh man. Well, Jim, congratulations nonetheless. Again, I appreciate your support. You've been a supporter for a long time. So those are our giveaway winners. That's I just feel the energy of people watching this video already. I'm so sorry, guys. Blame the randomizer. Blame the random function on Google Sheets. The people behind Google, they're the ones that made this happen. Just so you know. Those are the giveaways this week. Let's go ahead and get into, well, the tournament and golf course information. So the Players Championship is iconic. Everyone knows the golf course. Everyone knows this tournament. There really isn't much to say that isn't already being said in the industry. And I like to take more of a to the point type of analysis every single week. So I'm not going to give you fluff as to why certain things matter, or not even so much why certain things matter. I'm just not going to give you a lot of information that is pointless. A lot of content creators do. What I like to do with the golf course, breakdown is just show you on the screen what shots that I think are preferred on each of these holes. You get to do with this whatever, you get to do with this information however you like. I have preferred shot shapes for off the tee. I have preferred shot shapes on approach. So that's what the APPSS means, approach shot shape, OTTSS, that is off the tee shot shape. So, pause the video, read whatever I write, if that's important to you, or just keep track of whatever shot shapes that I think are preferred. I think that's what makes this easier for certain golfers. It's not an end-all be-all. If anything, maybe it's a tiebreaker between two golfers. Like if you're between Jon Rahm or Rory McIlroy, well, this golf course tends to favor golfers who hit a draw. Maybe that's your tiebreaker to choose Rory over Jon Rahm. But that's all that I would give it. Just make it a tiebreaker. I certainly wouldn't put all 6 golfers in my lineup that hit draws. I wouldn't. Just like tee times stacks. You never see a full 6 golfers with a draw inside the top 5 or inside the top 6, and you don't see 6 golfers with fades. It's always a mix. Again, use it as a tiebreaker, not an end all be all. But that's what I have, and I don't really care to go into hole by hole statistics because who the fuck cares? Sometimes I see that we have 4 par 4s that are reaching over 460 yards. Yeah, well, they also change where they place the tee boxes. So sometimes those holes will be 420 yards. Sometimes they'll be 500. Who cares if it's 460 or 450? You already know my take on just golf analysis in general. Off the tee stats, reign king. Always find the golfers who hit the ball further. They just have more potential for scoring. The possibilities for them to score lower scores are higher because they hit the ball further. And I mean, if you can find someone who hits the ball straight while hitting it far, you have a good chance with them not only making the cut, but finishing inside the top 10 and even winning the tournament. So that's my take on it. Like I said, that's enough fluff from me. That's the golf course kind of breakdown that I have, that I like to provide. Preferred shot shapes. That's what a golf course breakdown should be. Oh, by the way, love listening to, I haven't listened to content in a long time. A lot of people loving to make definitives. If you don't have this in your analysis, what are you doing? What's wrong with you? Not my style. And I think it's worth criticizing, but either way, let's move on. I just wanted to throw that in there. Let's move on. So that's the golf course. Just to look at past results, so you might get kind of a, an idea of what the score will be, the winning score, since the golf course really isn't set up that much different year in and year out. Remember, they switched this from May to March, which changed it from Bermuda to this overseed. By the way, last week, overseed with Bermuda. It's hard to determine these Florida courses, what time of the year it is, what weather, what types of grass really is on the golf course. But we know with this particular tournament, it is overseeded with rye and bent grass, so keep that in mind. Like I said, it moved from the tournament being in May to March. I think that was somewhere around 2017, something like that. But either way, your winning scores each year are around -13, -14, somewhere in that general vicinity. So it's going to be a tough scoring tournament. Getting all rounds under 70, probably going to be difficult. We do have a par 72 this week. So, and also trying to pick those golfers are a dime a dozen. It's really difficult to figure that one out. Usually you have of, the entire field, you might have 5 to 7 golfers who do break 70 every round of golf. I don't think that's going to happen this week, so we don't necessarily have to worry about that. There are going to be some low rounds. People will shoot low 60s, 61, 62, 63, but then they'll follow it up with the 74. Like, that's just how this tournament goes. Just embrace the volatility. It's a middle ground. Like, if I were going over this and I had the stats to provide, golfers who do well when the score is this score or this score, I would provide that. I don't. But if you can find that, and if you have the access to it, by all means do that. This is going to be somewhere in the middle, though. So I think people who score well are going to do well, or have the chance, have an equal opportunity to do just as well as those that find par more often than not. Look at Jason Day during the Arnold Palmer Invitational last week. I think he finished 11th place. He finished top 20. He was like the 20th DK scorer, because that's who Jason Day is. He doesn't make many bogeys, but he also doesn't make a lot of birdies either. He just plays solid golf and finds himself at the top of the leaderboard with very few mistakes. It's not really good for DK scoring, but you're also not kicking yourself for having Jason Day in your lineup, because he did finish, I think, top 11. So anyways, so that's a little bit more of the tournament. And just to kind of round it off, I like to talk about the strength of field. Very strong, obviously. The Players' Championship, this is the championship for the players. Obviously deemed as the 5th major. A lot of, top pros enjoy this tournament. It has a huge purse, so the winner takes home a ton of money. And really the top 5 take home a ton of money. So another one of those quote-unquote elevated events, although this doesn't really necessarily need to be elevated because it already is. It has been. But yeah, 808, pretty strong strength of field. Trying to remember what the PGA Championship at Kiowa Island, I think, had the strongest strength of field, and I can't remember what the actual point total was, like for the strength of field points. This is pretty close to it. I want to say that might have been 829 or 830 or something like that. So we have the best golfers minus the live golfers in this field. And currently it's at 151 golfers, I believe, in the field. Like, if I were just to scroll down on these result pages, we have usually 144 golfers. 2021, we had a ton, just like we do this year. I don't understand differences, why certain events have more in the field than usual, but 151 so far. And I don't know if they're going to add people. I don't know if people are already withdrawing. Always be on the lookout for withdrawals, so just keep that in mind. But yeah, 151 golfers I currently have from DraftKings. I'm sure be on the lookout for add-ons or even just withdrawals, like I said. But currently 808 is the strength of field. So I've basically given you a lot of the stuff that I went over are things that you can use for research. So strength of field, you can apply that in your research. See how golfers do with strength of field points, as high as this one is. You also can use the golf course that the preferred shot shapes that I have. Maybe look at certain golf courses. You're going to have to eyeball this one yourself. I will have this available eventually when I put the website up, or once I get the website up and running. That you'll be able to do your own research on what shot shapes are required or preferred at certain golf courses. And also, if, going by just the winning score, somewhere between that minus 12 to minus 16 range, see who does well during those tournaments. That's the reason I give you this information. I'm not going to show off as to what I know and what I don't know, or not so much what I don't know, but what I do know. Because I could nerd out with agronomy. I went to school for golf course management. I know agronomy. I could also nerd out about architecture. That doesn't do anything when it comes to DK, DK performance or anything like that. I can tell you on the cheat sheet, I did include bent grass, because we do have overseed, and I included peat dye. So that is available to you on the cheat sheet. Again, just to show you everything that I'm covering in this video, you can find here. So that will wrap up the tournament and golf course information. Let's go ahead and talk about pass optimal lineups and GPP winning lineups. Again, like I said in the intro, the reason we look at this is try to find some common trends, some common themes of lineups with salary structures, stuff like that, to put into our lineup building process this week. Last week at the Arnold Palmer, and I'll cover that in the review, when we went over pass optimal lineups, we saw more lineups that had 2 6K golfers in it than we didn't. So that was kind of saying, you know what, maybe put 2 6K golfers in your lineup. Well, the optimal lineup had 2 6K golfers in it. So you can go check the preview video that I had for the Arnold. Well, actually, it was a wrap up. It was a strategy and preview since I had an emergency Monday. You can go to that portion of it, or check out one of the small videos or one of the shorter videos that I had that included the review of never mind, that would be wrong. You'd want to look at the preview video that I would have posted, but I don't think I did, so I'm sorry, disregard that. Oh, I did put out a pass optimal lineup and GPP winning lineup. That's the video I'm thinking of. I got distracted. Check that one out, because that's what we found. You want to, there were more lineups of 2 6K golfers in it that were in the optimal lineup. Not so much the GPP winning lineup, but anyways, moving on. I'm sorry. I got distracted, so now I'm just mumbling. In 2017, so we had salaries, believe it or not, for DraftKings in 2017. So they ran a contest here, and I think this might have been one of their first ones. Maybe the Masters was their first one, and then this one was a short second, or another one that they came out with. Your optimal left nearly $9,000 on the table, $8,600 on the table. Never advocate for that, ever. Never, ever, ever. Don't leave more than don't leave more than $1,000 on the table. And that's even difficult to even say. I almost don't want you to leave more than $500 or $600 on the table. Just don't think it's necessary. So your optimal, look at all the 7 and 6K golfers at the top of the leaderboard. That's impossible. Just don't do that. Looking at a more realistic lineup, so we're looking at like 49,500 and above. You can see it starts with Dustin Johnson at $12,000. Pricing was weird in 2017, but it's still a rank order of how good the golfers are in comparison to each other. That's how DraftKings has always done their salaries. That's why we continue to look at it. It's not nonsense. So Dustin Johnson, probably one of the highest ranked golfers in the field. I'm not going to sort it out, but either way, as you see, $12,000. A more realistic lineup that would have probably taken down a GPP started with a golfer 10K and above. And then it dropped to 2 8K golfers, a 7, and 2 6s. So that's kind of our first indication. Maybe you want 2 6s, 2 6K golfers in our lineup this week. Going to 2018, your optimal left a lot of money on the table once again. It did include an 11K, but then it was just 5 7Ks to go with that. I do have a more realistic lineup that left $900 on the table, but I might try to create one with you guys right now to see if we can find something closer, because I don't like that. Either way, a more realistic lineup, we're including the 11K and then 4 7K golfers, and then adding Tiger Woods at $8,600. I bet you we could probably replace like Jimmy Walker with another 8K golfer. No, this is $100 over. Well, I mean, we could go from Schwartzel down to Jimmy Walker. There you go. That's $50,000 right there. So it would have been a 10K golfer, 2 8s, like we just saw in the last year in 2017, and then 3 7s. So we don't have the 2 6s, but you can see there are several 6K golfers inside the top 10. Several, I mean 3. So it's worth noting that you could take down a GPP once again by putting multiple 6K golfers in your lineup. Now you don't have to, because obviously the optimal had nothing but 7K golfers in it, basically. Moving on to 2019, our optimal only left $900 on the table, and then the GPP winning lineup only left $100 on the table. So with the optimal, we had Rory at 10K and above, so we have another 10K golfer. In fact, we have two of them, Rory and Dustin Johnson. And then look at that, Eddie Pepperell at 6,800, Johnny Vegas at 6,100. So two 6K golfers once again, but let's add in a third one and then a low 7. That's probably unrealistic, honestly. We look at the GPP winning lineup. We have 5 golfers here inside the top 12, and then we have another one down here in 56th place. So you don't need to get all 6 golfers inside the top 10 or top 20. You can have one linger and still take it down to GPP. But this one started with Rory at 10K, Rahm at 9K, Tommy Fleetwood at 8, Jim Furyk at 7, Ian Poulter at 7, and Brandt Snedeker at 6. Or I'm sorry, Johnny Vegas at $6,100. That common 10-9-8-7-7-6 build, 1 AGPP. Now, if I was building like a more realistic lineup, because leaving $900 on the table isn't super realistic, especially with an optimal. We start with a 10K golfer in Rory. He obviously won, so we want to keep him. Furyk and Pepperell, sure, that makes sense. High 6K golfer is a lot easier to stomach than a low 6K, so we'll just keep those 3. Then we'll put in Tommy Fleetwood, $8,800. Why not add another 6K in Brandt Snedeker, 69? So now I have $9,600 to play with. There you go, Jason Day. So we start with a 10K golfer, go to a 9K golfer, then to an 8, a 7, and 2 6s. So we already see the trend, right? 2 6K golfers. And again, this is just trends that we see. Kind of shows, and I know other content creators out there show this in different ways, that this is a tournament of volatility. In 2020, that was COVID, just boom, happened right at this tournament. They canceled it after round 1, so we have no finishes whatsoever. No salaries to think about. But in 2021, when we moved there, our optimal lineup left $900 on the table. And looks like we have a substitution that we could have made. Yeah, Sergio and Taylor Gooch. We could switch those out. So let's keep that in mind. Your optimal lineup actually had Bryson at 9,700, Justin Thomas at 9,900, Paul Casey at 84. Again, so Taylor Gooch and Sergio Garcia are interchangeable. They scored the same amount of points, and you could fit them in the optimal lineup. So it's either 7K flat with Taylor Gooch or 7,500 with Sergio. So just keep that in mind. We're going to keep Gooch in our optimal here. And then we have a 7K in Westwood and a $6,900 in Brian Harmon. So just to repeat that, that's a 998-776 method. Again, kind of follows the 10-9-8-7-7-6 approach that I typically advocate every single week, but you can always make a couple substitutions or up to 2 substitutions, move a 10 down to a 9. There you go. Perfect. We do not see 2 6K golfers that you could really play. Maybe I changed my tune on that. Hold on. If I sort by DK points top to bottom, we have Charlie Hoffman, who was the 8th highest scoring golfer, and then Charles Howell III, who was the 12th highest scoring golfer. I bet you we can win a GPP by putting 2 6K golfers in our lineup together. I don't see a 10K golfer. John Rahm, who is our 19th ranked DK scorer for the week, probably could include him. So your Millie Maker lineup left $900 on the table and scored 610.5 points. So let's put a Rahm lineup together. So we go with Rahm, JT, Lee Westwood. I'm going to skip Bryson. Go to Paul Casey, Brian Harmon, and this leaves us with $6,700. Charles Howell III. So this is 49.9. How many points does this score? $613. So it takes down the Millie Maker by 2.5 points. So yeah, you can do it that way. Obviously, we don't need to get down to a 10K golfer. We can do 2 9s. And you could put 2 6K golfers in your lineup together, by the way. So that's obviously available to you. building a lineup that way. Let's see how. Trying to figure out how do we get two 6K golfers in our lineup. I don't think it's possible. Yeah, we probably just don't do that. Moving on to 2022. Our optimal left $3,000 on the table. Now, that's not really realistic, but to talk about those golfers, we had Cameron Smith at $9,400, Victor Hovland at $10,000, so we do go 10-9, then we go 7-7-6-6. Yeah, leaving $3,000 on the table, not super realistic. Your GPP winning lineup used a $9,400 Cam Smith, $9,800 Dustin Johnson, $8,000 Shane Lowry, $7,100 Kevin Kisner, $6,900 Keegan Bradley, and then $87 Louis Oosthuizen. So that started 9-9, 8-8, 7-6. The sweet spot optimal was Victor Hovland at 10K, Dustin Johnson at 9K, Cam Smith at 9K, 2 7s, and then a 6. That equals 49,900. So many ways you can get there, and it looks like this was another week where you could put another 6K golfer in your lineup. So you could add two 6K golfers once again. So 10-9 and 2 6s is what I'm seeing more often than not when it comes to building lineups. So that wraps up your pass optimal lineup and GPP winning lineups. We'll talk about salaries once we get to the buckets once again. But for that, this is a wrap on the pass optimal and GPP winning lineups. Let's go ahead and review the Arnold Palmer Invitational. So again, we're reviewing the Arnold Palmer Invitational. One thing I want you to note, take a look at this column here. This is our bucket system for the Arnold Palmer Invitational. The Y's look at your top 10 golfers for that week's tournament. So obviously last week, looks at all the golfers that fit inside these buckets, does a count here, and depending on what my projections were versus the count, it will deem it either successful or not successful. And when you take a look at all of these, we have Y's for 35 out of 36 buckets. Now, this bucket here is also a Y. The reason that it doesn't show on there is because I haven't written code in there to put the 2-point buffer we typically do in our projections. If you watch any of my preview videos, I always say we want a 2-point buffer. We always round down whenever we possibly can with that buffer. But if you already round down to 0, then the next, like the max projection then goes to 2. So we'll never have a projection lower than 0 to 2, unless there's only one golfer in that bucket. Otherwise, it's always 0 to 2 for the projection. That means 36 out of 36 buckets were correct. Sorry, little critter distracting me. So we have 36 out of 36 buckets correct, which means more likely, one, the sweet spot optimal was really close to taking down a GPP, or not so much a GPP, but being the optimal lineup, or really close to beating the optimal lineup. And I'll get into that right now. We might as well talk about what the optimal lineup was versus the GPP winner. Your optimal lineup left $1,600 on the table. $1,600. That's, again, I don't advocate for that. I think it's difficult to do. $1,600 is it's challenging because you introduce so many different combinations of lineups. So I never advocate for that. I always say leave no more than $500 to $600 on the table. But your optimal lineup included Tyrrell Hatton, Patrick Cantlay, Rory McIlroy. So let's do this a different way. 10K in Rory McIlroy, 9K in Patrick Cantlay, 8K in Tyrrell Hatton, Harris English at 7, and then 2 6K golfers. That is what we talked about last in the preview video during the pass optimal and GPP winning lineups. So again, the criticism as to Why look at past when we should look at future? Well, because you can find trends as to what works at certain tournaments. And obviously at the API, having two 6K golfers was probably the thing to do. Now your GPP winning lineup left $500 on the table, which is awesome. Usually you don't see a lot of money left on the table for GPP winning lineups. That scored 537.5. If I didn't mention the optimal lineup, that scored 576. So there's a 40-point difference between GPP winning lineup and the optimal, which if I say anything within 50 points, I think that's good. I'll take that back. If the total score for your DraftKings lineup is less than 500, then that 50-point difference isn't that impressive, because a low scoring event just, it doesn't allow for a lot of scoring, put it that way. And therefore your gaps are going to be smaller as well. Anyways, this was over 500. So a 50-point, being within 50 points of the optimal was pretty good. So the GPP winning lineup, that's awesome. Within 50 points and, only left $500 on the table. Now, before I get into the sweet spot optimal, it is worth mentioning marquee tee times. And basically what I want to do is review the sweet spot optimal to show you how it compares to the GPP winning lineup. Because when I go through every single week and I discuss the buckets, I discuss the marquee tee times, all that stuff, there are rules that are applied. And if you apply those rules to your lineup building, well, first of all, is it successful, right? That's got to be the number one thing you got to think about. Why would I take your strategy to heart? Well, let me prove it to you. So with the marquee tee times, if you forgot what this is, I'm rank ordering the groups based off of the sweet spot score that I provide, the sweet spot rank. So group 1 last week was John Rahm, Xander Schauffele, and Colin Morikawa. Their group score together was 22 points. This is their ranking, right? Rahm was number 1, Schauffele's 4, so that's 5. You add that up, 5 plus 17 is 22. Then we look at the next group. That's Rory McIlroy, Tyrrell Hatton, and Max Homa. You add all this up, 18 plus 6, that's 24. So it's 2 points behind this one, but when we rank order them, you can see group 1 versus group 2, so on and so forth. The marquee tee times, in my opinion, are your top 9 groups. And really, I look at the top 7. That's why you can see the dark green highlighted with their sweet spot rank versus the light green down here in group 8 and group 9. But I still like to include them because, well, first of all, the optimizer only allows me to have 9 groups. So why wouldn't I utilize 9 groups? I like to use all of the group. Like, I would like to look at every single group, but the optimizer doesn't allow me to do that. So we look at really the top 7, but the top 9. And the rule when it comes to the marquee tee times is grab somewhere between 2 to 4 golfers from the marquee tee times. Remember, there are 9 of them. So grab 2 to 4 from the 9 groups. And then also on top of that is don't grab more than 1 golfer from a marquee tee time. If you do, don't grab more than 2, because there's rarely ever 3. Like, I think it's only been 1 time in the last 80 weeks that we've had 3 golfers in the same group. I could be lying. I remember that happening at like a lesser event, like a Corrales Punta Cana or something like that, but it rarely happens. And I rather play the odds. So I don't do that. And likewise, you rarely see 2 golfers in the same group in the optimal lineup. This week we did. So it gets proven wrong. However, still, I'm showing you, even if you follow the sweet spot process, there is going to be success to be had. So marquee tee times, remember, grab 2 to 4 golfers from here, and then don't grab more than 1 golfer from each group. So really, you have 9 groups. You have the potential to grab up to 9 golfers. Obviously, you can only build lineups with 6 of them, or, with 6 golfers. So you just look at 6 separate groups and do that. But I max it out at 4 because I'm playing numbers. I've never seen more than 4 golfers from the marquee tee time in an optimal lineup. So why do that? You had 4 golfers in the GPP winning lineup. You only had 2 golfers in the optimal, Rory and Tyrrell Hatton. And then there are 3 golfers in the Sweet Spot Optimal. And really the Sweet Spot Optimal is me taking the optimizer from last week, modifying it to add in the DK scores, which you can see right here. The metric right here. I'm only grabbing like the top 30 golfers, you know, that scored well at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. I'm using all their bucket information. I'm still applying all of the marquee tee times. I'm applying the wave stacks. I'm still applying all of the buckets here, and it creates me the most optimal Sweet Spot optimal lineup. The most optimal Sweet Spot lineup. Scored 562.5. And it left $300 on the table. So actually, that's a different one. If I were to move this to 49,000 and rerun this, you're going to see it's just slightly better. I think it's 564.5. It does include 2 6K golfers in Kurt Kitayama and Davis Riley. Then it's Patrick Cantlay, Tyrrell Hatton, Scotty Scheffler, and Keegan Bradley. I was going to call him Scotty Bradley. So following the Sweet Spot process, you're still scoring a boatload of points. You're not leaving a lot of money on the table. We're also grabbing 3 marquee tee time golfers. You know, again, I'm setting that 2 to 4. I did change my stacks for waves, 5 being the max for the PM, because I think there was a PM AM, you know, advantage. So I didn't want to grab 6. I did say, hey, you can grab up to 5, and then you could grab 2. Now I could change this for you guys. This is how I normally have it, 4 and 3, because there's always a slight advantage to the PM AM wave. And I could rerun this, and maybe we still beat the optimal or the GPP wing lineup. And we do. We actually score way more points. Not way more. Why is that different? Sometimes the optimizer doesn't make sense, because 567.5 is higher than 564.5. Weird. Either way, we still take down a GBP. 67.5. See, what was the optimal again? Wrong. Yeah, this is the right one. 576. So we're 9 points behind it. Either way, the Sweet Spot Optimal, I have 2 of them, 564 and 562. Those were the 2 lineups you saw, minus the one I just showed you. And they're highlighted here in green. The red font indicates the different lineup. So the green highlighted salary, the fill, I should say, would be this Sweet Spot Optimal, which would scored 564, but left $700 on the table. And then if you sub up from Riley to Harris English, you can see your 400-point boost, but you lose 2 points. Well, GPP winning lineup scored 537.5. Sweet Spot Optimal scored 564.5. Sweet Spot 1, I should say. Sweet Spot 2 scored 562.5. And of course, if we change up the just the wave splits down here, we somehow score 3 more points. So that makes no sense to me. I don't get why it didn't just already look for those golfers. It doesn't make any sense to me. Anyways, so yeah, following the Sweet Spot process to the T, by the way, there's no shortcuts. If you grab my optimizer and say you built it, I think one of my followers reached out to me and asked me about how do we get to the Sweet Spot Optimal? How you know, when you review this every single week, how do we get there? It quite frankly comes down to anchoring around certain golfers. You know, last week I really wanted to anchor around Rory, but I did so well at the Honda Classic by opening up my ownership to creating all the different combinations I can at the top. So I included a 10K with a 9K golfer, you know, X amount of times. And I did that for each 10 9K combination with each 10 9K golfer. So it came up with, like, you know, I created 118 lineups with, you know, 4 times the 10-9 combinations you could do. I know that's going to be confusing to some of you guys. I will go over that in the strategy video this week. I did it in last week's video as well, and I did it in the week before that. So because that strategy worked out so well for me at the Honda, I did it also at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. Now, I did want to go 100% in on Rory McIlroy. And really 100% to me is going 70%. You know, I'm going overweight on Rory. Still always leave the different combinations open. I just don't go as equal with all of them. I go really heavy with like a Rory and then a 9K golfer. So basically what that would look like is, let's say I had just the regular optimizer up, and it's like, you know what? I really like Rory. Where is Rory? Rory's right here. He's in group 2. Well, I can't play Tyrrell Hatton because he's also in group 2. I need to find me another golfer to anchor around. Well, usually I go to a 9K golfer. That's just where my brain naturally goes to. Last week, Rory and Justin Thomas were my 2 guys that I would have anchored around in all of my lineups because I had no faith in Patrick Cantlay. But that's how you get there. So if you were to anchor around Patrick Cantlay and Rory McIlroy, you can already see they're in here. Maybe not this lineup, but if I were to do that and just build this lineup, that's how we get to the sweet spot optimal. You know, you would have had to have been, well, again, so the optimizer is just, oh, you don't want to know why? So 543 still takes down that GPP because the GPP scored 537. This is this way because I changed the waves. The waves are different. So if I go back down here and I kind of re-update this, but by the way, this is the lineup I would have built. I would have been cool with this lineup. Jason Day in my lineup, I talked about him in my strategy video. That would have been easy to do. I have 2 7K golfers and a 6K. And I talked about Kurt Kitayama last week, just like I'm sure a lot of other content creators, but I liked him here. Said he hit the ball far, has the length to compete at this golf course. So he was in a few of my lineups. I don't know how many. Looks like 2%. This is showing my actual ownership, 2%. So not a ton of my lineups. If I did say that, my bad. I apologize. 33% Rory. That was good. He was my highest 10K golfer. Rahm was at 22, or Scheffler 25. So that's how my 10K and above kind of shook out. So this is how you get to, I guess I have to rerun it, right? This is how you get to your sweet spot optimal, is just locking in those golfers. And yeah, this is really interesting. Okay, so I guess thinking about the optimizer, how it calculates things, it goes through different checks and balances. Because if I remove these 2 golfers and rerun this, I'm going to get a whole different combination of golfers. Yeah. And it's still going to, okay, so it includes Cantlay and Scheffler. Doesn't include Rory. But why? I don't get it. I didn't even realize that Rory wasn't in the sweet spot optimal. Okay, so this is your combination. It wouldn't have been Rory. You wouldn't have put, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, Rory's not in the sweet spot optimal. Crazy. Wouldn't have thought that. Rory scored what, 94.5 points, and Scotty scored 91. So it wasn't so much you needed Rory. You could have went with Scotty. 3 points isn't a big deal. Good to know. So you would have had to have went Scotty and then Patrick Cantlay, which I would never have gone. That wouldn't have been me. Okay, I looked at that wrong. That will cover your pass optimal and GPP winning lineups. Actually, I'm sorry. No. Let's cut that out. That will cover the review of the Arnold Palmer Invitational. I got so like messed up with going over salaries and stuff like that. So the buckets, 100% successful. The sweet spot optimal was much higher than the GPP winning lineup and not that far behind actual optimal lineup. Again, the optimal scored 576 and the sweet spot scored 564. So pretty darn close. Let's move on and get straight into the bucket system. I think what I'm going to do is just go really fast through this. You can follow along with me using the cheat sheet. Again, check the description of this video. I have a link to that cheat sheet. Go click on the link. It'll send you to this page. Go to File, make a copy, and that way you can go down to the Bucket System tab and put the filter that I'm going to be putting on this as well. So it is available to you. Let's go ahead and talk about each bucket. Now I clear, so I go into this little stat filter. First of all, I go up to the filter up here, go down the Bucket System, click that. It'll bring up this filter for you. I need to update mine. It doesn't go all the way over. There we go. And then let's update this so it isn't messy. What I like to do is clear everything from the stat column and then just select last year. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to go over each of these buckets quickly. Last year one. Now, when you go and you look at each of these buckets, by the way, so I'm going to actually step away from looking at the last year one buckets. Always look at how many golfers are in that bucket this year versus the average. That's already going to give you an indication of, are we up to par, or are we missing some, or do we have a ton more? Always look at those things first, because then when you look at like success rates, you have a really high success rate and then you have more golfers that year than you normally do, you're going to have a really high projection and a very good likelihood that golfers from that bucket will actually appear inside the top 10. Now, when it comes to the last year buckets, nothing is safe, essentially, from what I see. Success rates are low. We do have high frequency rates of golfers from some of these buckets being inside the top 10. 100% means we've seen at least one golfer from that bucket inside the top 10. So you could start there if you wanted. Nothing is for certain, really. Like, I guess this is one of the buckets that's pretty good. So the last year 5 means a missed cut bucket. Let me just go top bottom. Last year ones, golfers who top 20'd this event. Usually this is a bucket where you normally see at least one golfer within the bucket finish inside the top 10 for that week. We do have a 100% frequency rate. We normally see, or minimum 1. We have 3 less golfers than we typically do. And our projection is between 0 to 2. And that's because the strength of field points that go into it, not super high. So this is a way of me adding value to that bucket. Whereas before I was kind of just looking at success rates and how many golfers were in that bucket. Now we add a little value to it and doesn't really add up. So having a top 20 finish here last year, not super imperative to put in your lineup. I still will though. Like this 100% frequency rate, I like that. 75% frequency rate of being the optimal lineup, I like that. Let's take a look at the golfers that are in that last year 1 bucket. Again, if you're following along with me, you have that option to use the filter. I clear out everyone in the last year bucket and just select last year 1. So we have that. And one of the reasons I think why we don't see a high projection is because Max Homa is our only 9K golfer and above. We see no 10K golfers. It drops pretty steep and goes to Victor, Tyrrell Hatton, Shane Lowry, and then into the 7K range and lower. So yeah, 0 to 2, I think is a fair projection. If I did like one more than another, I kind of like Victor this week. For $8,000, like $8,900, I like that a lot. I also don't mind playing any of these golfers down here, so feel free. And I'm not sure if Daniel Berger's actually playing. It'd be cool to see him, but we'll see. We'll see if he withdraws beforehand, or if he already has, then, my bad. The next bucket to talk about, last year 2s, that 20 to 40 range. We're also looking at 0 to 2 here as well. But 100% frequency rate, so keep that in mind. Again, follow along with me on the cheat sheet. Just go down to last year 2. And now we finally see our first 10K golfer in Rory McIlroy, Justin Thomas, Will Zalatoris, Tommy Fleetwood. Now, one thing to note. This is 0 to 2. Sure, we have 100% frequency rate. We have less golfers in it than we normally do. Not a high frequency rate of being in the optimal lineup. All that does to me is caution me into playing 2 of these guys. So this is why I like the bucket system. Let's say I wanted to put Rory and Justin Thomas together. No, I'm not going to. Like I might, and if I'm creating 100 lineups, I might put them in 2 lineups together. If I'm trying to figure out an anchor play, like if I'm trying to put one guy with another, I'm not going to put Rory and Justin Thomas together. I'm also not going to put Rory and Will Zalatoris together. It's too high price to combine those golfers together. And so far, I don't see anything, with the buckets that tell me this is a good pairing. Again, I will always have FOMO, so I will put some of these guys together, but I'm building over 100 lineups, guys. Like, just keep that in mind. If you're someone who only builds 10, risk what you see with the bucket projections if you want to pair these guys up together. But I'm also certainly not playing 3 of these guys together. There's no possible way I'm putting 3 of these guys together. So this eliminates a lot of combinations that you can build. So keep that in mind. Moving on. Last year 3s. 0 to 2 with that bucket, and actually 0 to 2 with all of these, well, the next 2 buckets. Okay, 0 to 2 last year 3s. Rahm and Scheffler are in this bucket. It's 0 to 2, so it's not even an anchor bucket. It doesn't tell you absolutely want to play a golfer from this bucket, so keep that in mind. Kind of crazy to see, because there aren't really any 10K golfers that are screaming confidence for me to select. Like Jon Rahm, obviously in a heater. Scotty Scheffler playing some really good golf as of late. And then Rory in the last bucket that we were just talking about. He just played really well at the API. But all the buckets they're in, there's not one, one bucket you absolutely want a golfer from. So the fact that these guys are in it, that's kind of scary. Moving on to the next one, last year 4s, 0 to 2 here. Not a lot of golfers in that bucket, so I can't imagine we're going to stay here long. Brian Harman, yeah, okay. So we're going to skip that one. Last year 5s, missed cuts. We want somewhere between 1 to 3. We're pretty much on par for how many golfers we see in that bucket, and it's 100% frequency rate, not only in the top 10 leaderboard, but also the optimal lineups. So, last year 5s, headed by Xander Schauffele, Patrick Cantlay, Colin Morikawa, and Tony Finau. 1 to 3 is the projection. You certainly can get that with any of these guys up at the top. You have such a combination of golfers down here you can pick from. So I wouldn't get married to grabbing certain golfers here at the top. Maybe 1, maybe 2, probably not 3. And especially if you like some of these fillers down here, I would probably stay away from anchoring any of these guys up here. And we just went over this with the past optimal lineups. There isn't any certainty. We've seen optimal lineups with 0 10K golfers in it, 0 9K golfers in it. So that's not to say don't play a 10K golfer, don't play a 9K golfer. Obviously, starting there makes lineup building a lot easier. It just goes hand in hand with this bucket projection saying there's no certainty with 10K golfers this week or 9K golfers, which kind of sucks. I'm not going to lie. I like when the buckets tell me, hey, yeah, 10K golfer is a really good option this week. So is a 9K golfer. This week, not so much. And then the last bucket are golfers who just did not play. This also includes golfers who have never played this tournament ever. I don't have that information to show you, combining buckets, but last year 6s are just not playing last year. And you can see in column AI, this is your course history bucket. There are some golfers that do have course history, but the majority of them do not. So keep that in mind. Some notable names here at the top. I kind of really like Thomas Dietrich. I like Taylor Montgomery. I put Minwoo Lee in my dummy lineup. Do with that as however that makes you feel. Does not matter to me. I just think Minwoo's probably a good play at this event. Just Got a feeling. That's all. But some notable golfers that I really like, I'm considering. Remember, the projection is 1 to 3. Always round down on this one, always round up there. And that's what we have. So again, if you're following on with on the cheat sheet, just when you go to this bucket, just note you want 1 to 3. Easy as that. Let's move on to the next bucket, and that is our last week buckets. So did playing last week matter? And if it did, which bucket shows up more than another? So we're going to start at the top. Last year ones are golfers who top 20 this event. I am projecting somewhere between 1 to 4. 1 to 4. Pretty impressive. Not really the highest success rate. We do have a few more golfers than we typically do. Frequency rate's kind of high. 87%, that's pretty good. So let's take a look at our golfers in the last week 1 bucket. Remember to make sure there are no active filters on. Go to last week 1 bucket. Select that after, clearing the other buckets out. Rory McIlroy, Scotty Scheffler. So that's pretty good. I mean, 1 to 4. And the bucket doesn't even have that many golfers in it. So really playing well last week, especially at the Arnold Palmer, pretty good indicator of success at this event. But we do have Rory, we have Scotty, we also have Max Homa, Patrick Cantlay, Victor Hovland. These are all going to be names people are going to select when building their lineups, and rightfully so. You want somewhere between 1 to 4. So what this tells me, don't build a full lineup with these guys. Build up to 4, or, choose up to 4 golfers, but really live somewhere between, I'd say, 2 to 3. Maybe you find your anchor plays here. Maybe it's a Rory Patrick Cantlay combo this week. Seems pretty fair, but I also, I told you I liked Victor Hovland. He's right there as well. I think those are good choices, but obviously you do whatever you think, makes sense to you. Our next bucket, last week 2s. That's 1 to 3 for that projection as well. Kind of just stays there, 50% frequency rate. We have way more golfers in that bucket than we typically do. That is because a ton of people tied for 39th place at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. A ton of people. So looking at our last week 2s, this is going to be a volume-driven bucket. Remember the projection. It's 1 to 3 with 31 golfers in it. So it starts with Jon Rahm, then it goes down to Xander Schauffele, Justin Thomas. So we have some decisions to make just by looking at last week 1 and last week 2, because we want at least one of these guys in each of these buckets. Which now makes choosing a 10K golfer a little bit easier, but it doesn't, really tell us which one we absolutely want. Because obviously we had Scotty and Rory in the other one. Now we have Jon Rahm and Xander Schauffele. So pick your poison. And then a slew of pretty decent golfers, especially fillers to put in your lineup. But remember, we only want 1 to 3. So if you do go with Rahm or Schauffele, it might be hard to put some of these golfers in your lineup. Now, if you want to go the opposite, there's another way to think about this. You could look at the 2 buckets, the last week 1 and the last week 2, and you look at kind of these filler golfers. If you like more golfers in one of these buckets down here, then maybe you pair up with the 10K golfer in the other bucket. That's a good way to think of building lineups this week. So if you liked a lot of these filler golfers here, I'd pair them up with like Rory or Scheffler. That seems pretty reasonable. Or if you like the fillers in that bucket, pair them up with Rahm or Schauffele, or even JT. I think that's an easy way to go about it. Moving on to the next bucket, last week 3s, 0 to 2. We only got 10 golfers in this bucket, so we probably won't stay here long. Oof. Will Zalatoris is in this bucket. That's tough, because a lot of people like him. I even like him this week. Yeah, it's a risky play. Put it that way. Last week 4s is pretty much the same song and dance as last week 3s. Not, I mean, it's 0-2. Shane, yeah. Tommy Fleetwood's an interesting name, and so is Seamus Power, but 0-2 from this bucket. Golfers who missed the cut last week, not a very high success rate. I mean, high frequency rate, but the original projection would be 1-3. But because my conservative projection over here is less than 2, that automatically drops my minimum to 0. So really this is 0-3. And your last week 5s are headed by Colin Morikawa, who is a favorite of everybody this week, it seems. But in a bucket that's 0-3, hard to jump on that, especially when we've got a lot of good filler golfers here. I'd rather fill with these guys than play Colin Morikawa. Let's put it that way. So that's my analysis of that bucket. Let's move on. Last week 6s, so golfers who didn't play last week. There are 35 golfers in that bucket. Normally we see around 52. I imagine because the Arnold Palmer Invitational was an elevated event, more golfers played in last week's event than usual. This is normally a 100% frequency rate of finishing inside the top 10. At least one golfer, I should say. This week, maybe not so much. 0-2 is our projection. And the golfers in here, not really anyone notable. Sure, McNeely, Berger. Berger's coming off an injury. Who knows? Lanto, same thing. No one really worth talking about. So moving on to our course history buckets. There are 2 golfers in the course history 1 bucket. And these are your golfers with the best course history. So that 0-20 range, basically, you know, which golfers average out a top 20 finish at this event. Well, sometimes this includes just people who've played it once, maybe even twice. Taylor Pendrith, Doug Ghim. Doug Ghim has played this a few times, or a couple times, I think twice. 17.5 is his average. Last year, finished 6th. Pendrith has only played it once, but I kind of like Pendrith this week. A lot of people do, I think, from what I've heard. But yeah, he's a talented golfer. I don't mind going to Pendrith, but that's a 0-2 projection with only 2 golfers in it. I would err on the 0 side than the 2 side. Just throwing that out there. Course history 2s, 20-40 average finishing position. 0-2 is our projection. Rory McIlroy is in here. So is Justin Thomas and Will Zalatoris. So as I keep seeing this, any bucket that Zalatoris is in has not been great. But in this bucket, he's with Rory McIlroy, which has been in one good bucket that I would choose. So if I am going Rory, I'm certainly not pairing him up with Will Zalatoris. I think that's just one of my rules this week, and that's cool. I don't mind doing that. I don't mind living with that rule. I'm probably not going to pair up Rory and JT, which I probably would have before, honestly. Sure, I'll do it in a couple lineups, but it won't be like an anchor play. Certainly won't anchor around those guys. So, 0-2, ladies and gentlemen, from this bucket. Next bucket, 2-5, course history 3s. This is not even really a volume-driven bucket. Sure, there are 43 golfers in it, but we normally see around 45. So I think the volatility of this golf course kind of lends your course history average not to be super great. And that's probably why, you know, we see a lot of golfers from this bucket showing up. Inside the top 10, that is. And John Rahm is in this bucket, go along with Max Homa and Patrick Cantlay. So if I'm using the bucket from, or the last bucket we just talked about, course history 2s, Rory was in that bucket. And I said I wouldn't pair him up with JT or Will Zalatoris. Well, you can kind of do the inverse, or not so much the inverse, but you could use that bucket and say, ooh, I like Rory. I'm going to pair him up with Patrick Cantlay. Or I'm going to pair him up with Victor Hovland. That all makes sense. Likewise, You remember me saying I don't want to play Will Zalatoris or Justin Thomas? Well, combos with John Rahm or Max Homa seem pretty smart. So that's kind of how I look at like building lineups. If one bucket shows one thing, I'll probably then choose the other bucket. So keep all that in mind. But this bucket's large, 45 golfers in it. And you want somewhere between what, 1 to 4? Is that what I just said? No, 2 to 5. Close enough. 2 to 5. I don't know if I'm really going to anchor around golfers from this bucket. I'll just let the optimizer choose the golfers that it thinks is. I mean, quite honestly, what I'll probably end up doing is building equal amount of Rory McIlroy lineups to go along with John Rahm lineups. Those will probably be my 2 heavier owned golfers in the 10K and above range, but I'll own or I'll roster each 10K golfer. So don't get me wrong, I'm playing just about everyone 9K and above. Course history 4s, we want somewhere between 1 to 3. We have 40, normally see 31, 100% frequency rate. So 1 to 3. It almost drops down. Let me double check something. It almost drops down to 0. Actually, it wouldn't have. Yeah, this almost drops down to 0. If this goes underneath 2, I automatically drop my minimum down to 0. So technically doesn't. So I can keep that 1 to 3 projection. And course history 4s. Scotty Scheffler, Xander Schauffele, Colin Morikawa, Tony Finau, Jordan Spieth. Scotty, not a super good course history at this event. I think he's played it twice. 70 is his course history, so his average finishing position is 70th place. Finished 55th here last year. Now, anything could have caused this. You know, I think last year he was in the bad wind draw, and you know the other year he played it, maybe he just didn't have his game, you know, that he currently does. So anything could cause those issues. Just throwing that out there. So the fact that Scotty's in this bucket, yeah, it's not great. You know, the projection's 1 to 3. It's pretty close to 0 to 3. It's still a good reason to play someone like Scheffler, or even Xander, or even Colin, who I just said probably don't play in one of the other buckets, which you could still carry on with you, and maybe that's why you play Scotty over someone like Colin Morikawa. But then you've got we got a good list of, I shouldn't say a good list of 6K golfers. I only say good list of 6K golfers as opposed to volume of 6K golfers. Otherwise, it's pretty scarce up here at the top. Kind of want to look at this when it comes to projections like 1 to 3. I'm kind of talking myself into, it's not these 5 golfers. Is it really going to be, you know, like I'm kind of doing like a comparison. Are these 5 golfers going to beat these 35 golfers 100% of the time? And if that's the case, then you definitely play one of these guys. You anchor around one of these golfers, and then you skip everyone else. But if you can make, you know what? It doesn't even necessarily mean they have to beat them, right? We still have to put together a lineup that fits the salary constraints, and then their finishes at the end of the tournament. You know, we could have Scotty inside the top 10, and we also could have Brendan Todd inside the top 10. Brendan could finish 7th. Scotty could finish 3rd or 4th. Scotty wouldn't be in the optimal lineup. But Brendan Todd would be, because his salary allows you to build different lineups with other salary caps. Or with, not salary caps, but with other salaries. Whereas Scotty Scheffler being a 10K golfer, when you combine other buckets, you might not be able to get to an optimal lineup, or even, you know, a really close lineup to take down a GPP. So there's also that maneuvering that you have to do. So it becomes, lineup building is very fickle. I'm still liking either starting with Rahm or Rory, but this doesn't really shy me away from playing someone like Scotty, because when we were going over the ROM lineup or bucket, I think that, yeah, course history 3 bucket, there were a lot of good 7K golfers that you could build lineups around. So if you want to start with Scotty, you certainly could. And I think when we looked at the Rory bucket, the course history 2, there's also still good 8 and 7K golfers you could build around there as well. So just giving you my pros and cons, I guess, of starting with Scotty or Xander or even Colin Morikawa or even Tony Finau or Jordan Spieth, and then pairing them up with other golfers. I think that's just fine. Course history 5s, golfers who just have the worst course history here. These are your missed cuts and withdraws. I don't think it's really worth talking about, but maybe it is because Cam Young's up there. I've heard a couple people talk about Cam Young not being a good fit at this golf course. I don't know if it's really true. I'll probably take a flyer on him. I'll also probably take a flyer on Seth Theegala. I will not pair any one of these guys up together with each other. So I will not put any Cam Young and Theegala lineups. Same goes with any of these other guys. I am playing I'm playing one golfer in this bucket and that's it in any of my lineups. I'm not saying I'm only selecting, one particular golfer. There are 19 golfers in this bucket. I could have 19 lineups with one of these guys, each one of these guys in my lineup. A unique lineup that has, just one of them in it. Anyways, I could do that. I'd have no issues with that. I'm certainly not anchoring around any of these golfers. Course history 6, golfers who just have never played this event ever. We have 35 golfers in this bucket. Normally we see 24. Who could these golfers be? Tom Kim is one. Minwoo Lee, Taylor Montgomery, Thomas Dietrich, Ben Griffin, Alex Smalley, your winner last week, Kurt Kitayama. I would say these 7 golfers, plus maybe S.H. Kim, Ryan Fox, Justin Suh, Davis Thompson, Davis Riley, Ben Taylor. These are notable names. 13 of them. Projection is 0 to 2, but it's a low, it's a low 1. We always round up with this number, and it's 1.09, so we always round up to 2. It'll always be 2. Not a super high confidence rating for this bucket. I wouldn't mind just putting like one of these golfers in my lineup, and that's it. I wouldn't put 2 or more. I'd probably just stick to 1. So this is quite literally the glue. This would be like a glue piece. So if I do put Tom Kim in my lineup, I'm not pairing them up with any of these guys. Same goes with Minwoo Lee. Same goes with Taylor Montgomery. Same goes with Thomas Dietrich. It will be difficult because I like a lot of these golfers, but I think that's probably the best way to build lineups. So that covers your course history buckets. Let's go in the recent form buckets. And this is pretty spread out. Just by looking at your max projections, you want golfers who have played recently, and you want a good mix of each of them. It looks like 1 will always be the minimum for these top 4 buckets, and then it's 3 or 4. So it looks like recent form 3 is when it goes up to 4. Okay. Let's select everyone in the course history bucket and look at our recent form 1s. So because of what I just said, I know we want somewhere between 1 to 3 golfers from this bucket in our lineup. Well, one golfer I don't see is Rory McIlroy. We've already talked about him a ton, but you do see Jon Rahm. You do see Scotty Scheffler. When I think of, the projection for this bucket, I think to myself like, oh, this is easy. Jon Rahm or Scheffler. That's who we want to anchor our lineups around. But then there's, JT, Jason Day. Well, remember, if I'm playing Rory, I'm not playing Justin Thomas with him. I'm also not playing Will Zalatoris. He's not here in this bucket, but I'm probably not even also playing Max Homa. So if I was to build like a Rory lineup, do I go to Finau? Maybe I put 2 10K golfers together, so Rory and one of these guys, or maybe I just put like Jason Day. 1 to 3 is the projection. very close to being under 3. It might be 0 to 2, but it is 1 to 3. I think we can move on. Recent form 2s. We want 1 to 3 here as well. And this is where it starts with Rory. Rory and Patrick Cantlay. Very interesting. I don't mind pairing these guys up together. Even them being in that 1 to 3. If that's the case, I'm not playing any of these other guys to go with Rory and Cantlay. Although the max projection says up to 3, which is totally plausible, totally doable, I'm probably just going to stick to 2. Just do the numbers game. Tom Kim is in this bucket. We were just talking about him in the course history 6 bucket, but man. Yeah, okay. So I'm looking at a lot of these golfers, and I think it's hard not to put like 3 of these guys together in some of these lineups. I'm just going to let the optimizer do the work. It's hard for me to even think of who I really want to play. You know, like anchor around. Seeing what we saw in the last bucket and then what we see in this bucket, choices are hard. Recent form 3s. This is your 1 to 4. The projection is 1 to 4 golfers from this bucket finished inside the top 10. Who they are, I'm not sure. There are some very notable names. Colin Morikawa being one of them. Okay, here's my weird take. I would rather play Taylor Montgomery, Min-Woo Lee, Thomas Dietrich. I might even go back to Alex Smalley. I also don't mind playing Harris English. Davis Riley. That's probably it. I'd rather play those guys over Colin Morikawa this week. That's my hot take. If I had a bet, I would put those golfers over Colin Morikawa. And I might even do that with Will Zalatoris, honestly. I think I find more value down here than I do up here. Could just be me. I don't know. You guys tell me. Well, would you rather take these golfers at the top or the golfers down here at the bottom? By the way, Tiger Woods isn't playing, so this will be out in my spreadsheets tomorrow. Moving on to the next bucket, recent form 4s. This is also a 1 to 3 projected bucket. And really no one notable. Just a lot of fill-ins, really. This is what I call kind of your glue. Probably need one golfer from this bucket to be in your lineups. I mean, $7,800 is the most expensive guy, and that's Maverick McNeely, who is recovering from an injury. So probably don't play him. Everyone else is $7,600 and cheaper, which makes lineup building easy with those golfers. So do as you will. The next couple buckets are 0 to 2 projections, but we probably just want to stay away from these guys altogether. Cam Davis and a bunch of 6K golfers in recent form 5, and then recent form 6, Daniel Berger. He might be worth a dart throw, honestly. And then a bunch of 6K golfers. So that rounds out your recent form buckets. Going on to salaries. So again, if you're following along with me, I'm just going to look at the salary buckets. We went over this with the pass optimal lineup and GPP winning lineups. And like what builds lineups. We saw it was a 10K golfer, a 9K golfer, and 2 6s most of the time. I'm not saying that's exactly what you should be doing, but it appears that that is one of the better lineup builds to do. 7K range, showing a pretty high success rate. Oh, is this true? Every single year there's been at least 3 6.5 and above 6K golfers inside the top 10 every single year. I thought we just went over it where you couldn't build some 6Ks. Now, obviously 2017, yep. 2018 was, oh yeah, no, you could. There was 3 right there. 2019? Epperl, Vegas, Snedeker. So there's 3 6Ks, but upper 6K. Oh, Brian Harmon. Yep. Okay. 2020 we don't count. 2021. Oh, bunch of, yeah. Okay. We have our 6K golfers there as well. And in 2022, Deegan Bradley 69, Harold Varner the third 6,800. We have a third one. Yep. Adam Hadwin 65. So isn't that interesting? Every single year we've seen at least 3 upper 6K golfers in the top 10. We don't have a 100% frequency rate of being in the optimal lineup, but like I said, we normally see a 10K golfer and a 9K golfer mixed in with 2 6K golfers for your optimal lineup at this event, or your GPP winning lineup or your sweet spot optimal. Doesn't matter which one you choose, you're still winning a ton of money if you do choose either of those lineups. So yeah, that just kind of solidifies our thought process. Is having 2 6K golfers in our lineup sounds pretty smart. I will say this. Look at our year, like our totals for this year. We have 4 10Ks where we normally see 5. We have 6 9Ks where we normally see about 6. 10 8Ks where we normally see about 10. 42 7Ks where we normally see 44. 36 high 6Ks where we normally see 53. And we have 53 lower 6K golfers where we normally see 27. So there was a flip. They've included more lower 6K golfers than they typically do, which is crazy. Is that true? Sometimes I can have my, yeah, it is true. Sometimes I can have my formulas wrong. There are 36 golfers there and 53 golfers lower 6K. So I guess to me, what I'd feel more, well, I mean, projections are projections. It's just, I think the low success rate is what really drives this number to be low. But even with this being said, this is a low success rate, and this is still 0 to 2. I don't know, folks. I think 2 6K golfers, regardless of where they are in that range, I think is probably the best way to go. I think that's probably what I'll have my optimizer select. I'd probably put like 60% of my lineups with 2 6K golfers in it. I think that's pretty solid. Moving on to the last bucket, strokes gained bucket. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time here. Use the cheat sheet available to go over each of these golfers. You can see that in column D. That's the strokes gained bucket. Obviously, do all your filtering and sorting here. Strokes gained 1. There are 30 golfers in that bucket. We normally see 23. That projection's 2 to 5 to be inside the top 10. Your best golfers are going to be in this bucket, so probably choose 2. I wouldn't go on the high end of that. So 2, maybe 3. You're feeling frisky, go with 4, but I wouldn't do 5. 0 to 2 strokes gained 2s. Pretty on par with how many we typically see. That does have a 100% frequency rate of being inside the top 10, so do with that as you will. I'm not advocating to go 100% with at least one golfer in that bucket, but you're probably not going to, it's not going to be terrible. You'll probably find some good golfers in that bucket. Strokes gained 3. We normally see 3 golfers from this bucket inside the top 10. This is your team no putt. Good ball striking, good driving, good approach, very bad putting. So keep that in mind. 1 to 3 is the projection, and that stays the same even when I consider the conservative projections. Strokes gained 4, 0 to 2. Bad off the tee, but good putters. Pretty on par with how many we typically see. So 0 to 2 is a pretty fair projection. And then the other 2 buckets probably don't touch. Strokes gained 5 are bad off the tee with bad putting and typically bad in between, approach and around the green. I stay away from those guys as well. 0 to 2 is my projection there. There's a lot that has been said that this is a ball striker golf course, and strokes gained buckets bear that out just as well as everyone else does with their strokes gained analysis. So probably anchor around 2 of these guys. I imagine, the cream of the crop is here at the top or with this bucket. You do have 3 of your 10K golfers in this bucket. And a bunch of good 9 and 8K golfers. Strokes gained 2. Victor Hovland. Interesting. Remember, 100% frequency rate from this bucket. So you do with that as you will. I'm probably not going to play 100%. Strokes gained 3 has Scotty in it. So his putting has just been that bad. That's pushed him into the strokes gained 3 bucket, which I kind of like. It's not terrible. Strokes gained 4. Hideki Matsuyama is the top of this one. Not a bucket that you really need to actively seek out. Just throwing that out there. And then strokes gained 5. Tiger Woods is at the top. Again, I don't think he's playing, but you also then have Webb Simpson. High risk play, but I don't hate it. So that covers all the buckets. There's no way Webb Simpson's 37, right? Do I have that wrong? I gotta look up Webb's age. He's 37. I'm gonna crap myself. He is 37, born in 1985. He's already got 20 kids. It's crazy. Kidding, he doesn't have 20, but he has a lot. Doesn't, yeah, okay. I was trying to count how many kids he had, but it doesn't show. A lot of siblings though. Big family, creating another big family. 7. That's 2 years older than me. I wouldn't have thought that. I thought that guy is super old. What the hell? He seems like an old dude. Anyways, that covers the buckets. That covers the bucket system. That covers the entire video. Had to be quiet. I've got people in the house sleeping, so that's why you kind of hear the quiet voice going on. Congratulations to Jim Lemoyne for hitting both of the giveaways. I know there are going to be some salty people in chat or in the comment section, and rightfully so. You should be salty towards Jim. Yeah, that covers the preview. I will include all this information in the strategy video tomorrow, so keep that in mind. If you want to put your name in the entry for next week's giveaway, which is worth $5, be subscribed, comment down below. Give me your 2 favorite golfers. Easy as that. And you'll also be put towards the monthly giveaway. I'm still going to have that subscriber goal of 500 subscribers on there, just so we reach it and give $50 away. So yeah, if you want the chance to win $50, be subscribed, comment down below. That's that. That's easy. And also you'll be included in the weekly giveaway. Prize picks, by the way, if you're not signed up on here, pretty fun way to play fantasy sports. Link in the description. Sign up, put $20 in your account. I will give you your $20 back. Or put up to 100. Prize picks will match you up to $100. Just throwing that out there. And again, you could have followed me along, or you could have followed along with me throughout all this video by using the cheat sheet that was available at your disposal. Again, link in the description below. And I'll have the optimizer ready for tomorrow's video, which is really today, because this is 1 in the morning. That'll be available later. Anyways, that's all that I have for you guys. So thank you for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, bye.